I spend a lot of time just making sure everything about the car, the controls, all work really good ergonomically. I tell you, I make as many changes inside the car with the controls for the driver as I do with other hardware. If somebody says they want the car to be faster and I go out, the shifter isn't working quite right, the pedals don't feel quite right, the steering wheel doesn't feel quite right, I just stop right there and I say, we're not going to work on any of this other stuff until we get the shifter working right, we get the clutch working right, we get the brake working right, we get the steering working right, we get the gas working right. When we get all that stuff working right, then we're going to make changes on the chassis, because you're wasting your time out there if you can't feel real comfortable. Like, the controls have to be absolutely natural to you. You just kind of are rolling those gears without thinking about it. You don't ever have to think about shifting. You don't have to think about braking. You don't have to think about steering. Then I start working on whatever it might be, tires or brakes or chassis parts and that kind of thing. And I just kind of get a feel for the car and decide where to go, a lot from experience, I'd say. It's as much experience as anything else to be driving it and go, well, I think first I want to look at the tire pressures and just try a couple things there, or that kind of thing. Or no, tire pressure's not enough, I need to look at shocks, or that's not it, something more fundamental than that, I need to look at springs and bars or something like that, or geometry. So a lot of it's experience. Even if you're not an engineer, just follow those principles. Things like doing A/B comparisons and making sure you control all the variables between the changes is extremely important. It's like temperature difference in the morning, from morning to afternoon. If you do it morning to afternoon, there's a huge temperature difference, and if you're trying to compare something, you're not going to get a very good answer if you do that. You pay attention to the tire pressures, really accurate on them. Just so accurate, you're considered anal. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting them within a half PSI. If you get them within 2 PSI, so what's that tell you? So get them as accurate as you can and be really good at comparing them, and just controlling all the conditions is the name of the game when you're doing track testing. But the other thing is making sure the car, before you ever go out, making sure you know what the car has. I call it doing your setup and set downs. When you arrive at the track, you put it on the scales, you measure it, you measure the height, you measure the alignments, no matter what you did at the shop. When I get to the track, first thing I do, I get all the scales out, I put the car on the scales, I remeasure everything when I get to the track. Hopefully it's the same. A lot of times it isn't quite the same. So you want to know what you've got when you go on the track. First thing I do when I come off the track, right back on the scales again. Check it all out and make sure it's still there. And then you know that you've got a constant platform, and now you can start making little changes. Some of the mistakes I see, common mistakes, are misreading the car. One that's pretty common is misreading that a car is an oversteering car. Kind of the driving in too hard and forcing the front end into a push, and then backing off the gas, and now the back end comes around, and they are trying to fix an oversteer. So it's kind of, that's the point I'm getting at, is misreading what's going on and then working on the wrong thing. So they're trying to fix an oversteer when the car is not an oversteering car, it's an understeering car. In general, I see a lot of drivers overdriving the tires. And when you overdrive the tires, you're beyond the point where they have the best grip. The best grip typically is a little bit further back. If you're sliding quite a bit, you're probably beyond the best grip of the tires. But a lot of drivers seem to want to get into that slide feel. They feel that's when they're at the limit. And it's actually a bit short of that. So finding that place, kind of backing off to where you find that spot where the tire is happiest and where it's got the most grip is good. And what you also find is the tire lasts longer when you do that. A lot of it for me is my endurance racing background. I had the fortune in the 80s when IMSA were running endurance series with a lot of long races. I mean, we were running street stock cars, Firebirds, Camaros, Corvettes, and that kind of thing. And we're running like 3, 4, 24-hour races a year. And it's, well, like our short races were 6. And when you do those, that many races, you really have to learn how to be smooth, how to relax, because you can spend a lot of energy driving a car in 6 hours. Yeah. And if you want to be good, you just have to learn how to relax and be easy on the car, easy on the brakes, but still go fast. Yeah. And so I think that endurance racing just taught me worlds about being smooth and taking it easy on equipment and relaxing. And I've many times had my heart rate taken when I get out of the car and when I get into the car, and it's basically the same.